forgot about that.
In 2007, my friends and I decided to put everything we had into making our second record something special. It took 2.5 years of work, but together, we made the best art we've ever created. It pushed us to the brink, and right after putting it out, we split up. This is the story of a record no one's heard. This is the story of Mana.
I'm sorry. Are you in 24? The brains?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want some Irish whiskey or some...
Dude, just surprise me. We're fine.
You got it.
Okay.
Some vodka flavored whiskey. Oh, am I in the shot?
Only want to go all the way over to there, so
I'll do that.
as long as you stay there, you're good.
Okay, so here we go. I remember when I was a kid, taking all my parents' tapes that they never listened to anymore, especially like my mom's because she passed away. I would like stuff them with foil on the top of them, like cassette tapes, and then I would put them into a boom box, and I would wait for a song on one of 3 stations. It was V-Rock, which was 88.9, and then it was WMMS, and then it was 107.9. I would wait for like a new grunge song to come along, and I would hit the 2 buttons, which was like, I think, play and record at the time. And I would make these like long mixes throughout entire tapes that probably were like Hall & Oates or some shit like that. But I remember doing that and always wanting to be in bands. So it was like normal for me to jump at the opportunity to try and do it when I was in high school.
Music in my childhood was largely waking up on weekends when I was a young little tyke to my dad cleaning the house. 8, 9, early as, you know, when you're a kid is all early, but he would also compensate for the vacuum noise by playing Motown records and like Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. So got kind of acclimated to those just as a way to wake up on the weekends. And I think a lot of that kind of bled through into just growing up and having an appreciation for music and a deep hatred for vacuums.
I think it was my mom used to listen to Stone Temple Pilots, and she introduced me to like Soundgarden and whatnot, and then, you know, that started the rabbit hole of the grunge thing and then the alternative, and then it was actually 9 Inch Nails that got me into the metal thing, and then ever since then I've just been looking for the hardest thing I could find.
We got recorders. That was kind of my first intro to music, and I was like, this is really cool, I want to make more sounds, so I made a rubber band guitar. And I remember putting on a concert for my parents. They probably blocked it out.
Well, it started with this band called the Knee Highs.
I guess it'd be the Knee Highs.
When I was in Central Elementary School, and it was Derek beating on pots and pans.
only had 3 rehearsals. It didn't really work out. Also, with our middle school schedule, it was just real tough.
That was my first attempt at ever making music. It was horrifically bad.
Variable 57. That was, oh God. I don't know how to describe that mess. I'm sorry.
Early band, Three-Way Reflex. I'll pay somebody $20 if they can find that demo.
I knew Desco from work, and that's how I got to know him better as a drummer. We had actually played a gig together. I was in a different band, and he was in Farsight at the time.
First band ever was a band called Farsight, playing with childhood friends, Ben Hendricks, Brendan Davis, and David Collier.
And I just remember him telling me how awful my band was, and I was like, we try. I like our band, but you guys are pretty good.
And then a few of us eventually graduated and formed a college band, Drop to Zero.
The first 3 years of this band were about building something. 2 weeks after I joined and we started late night rehearsals and writing sessions in our little storage unit practice space, we were already booking shows. Half our songs were covers. The only people that watched were friends and girlfriends. We made friends with other wandering bands. With these like-minded gypsies, we lived the up-all-night debauchery after-party experience. We lost members and gained members. We found that the songs we had that were simple and angry and heavy got people's attention more. When we got some of those songs on the local radio...
Hello. The day is November 17th, 2006. The time, 3:43 in the p.m. Me and Conor are driving to the studio to talk on the radio.
Net, the Silver Street by Drop to Zero.
We're playing our CD release show tonight in Kent, Ohio at the Robin Hood Bar and Grill.
We'd found the last gasp of nu metal enthusiasm, and people were singing these songs back at us and bouncing up and down. We got enough recorded songs together to release our first album, Silence of All, in the fall of '06. It was our radio-friendly, moshing at midnight, angst-filled party record. But while we were having fun, we get pushed back to the earlier sets and shows. Less people are there for us. More interesting bands are taking our place. We're not getting invited to out-of-town gigs to trade with other bands as much. It began to feel like maybe we'd fallen a few steps behind. Then Amplexus released Deus Ex Machina, and they blew the fucking doors off our scene. They were our closest of friends, and we'd watch them dedicate themselves entirely to creating that record throughout that year. And when it came out, people connected emotionally to the sound, the storytelling, and the heartfelt message that this was 6 guys invested in sharing a vision for their art. To this day, it's one of our absolute favorite albums, made by anyone. So we decided collectively that if we were going to keep doing this and grow alongside our peers, it was time to take our passion for screaming and noise into the basement and turn it into art. Put simply, we were going to put our noses to the grindstone to make a great fucking record. So we're all over at the Costley Courthouse, and from the basement we hear this kind of ethereal bass lick that none of us had ever heard before. And what it was Yop by himself sitting next to his amp playing this riff that he'd written about Jada, his wife. And I remember Brendan, shot up like a cannon and ran right downstairs because it triggered something in him. Then he was like, hey, we're going to develop this into like a song, and it's going to be an important one. And we all kind of followed suit with that. And that's how the song was born. That's how we got Mana. Setting out to make the record, we got a gift in Scott Lambert on guitar. A thoughtful, sensitive soulmate for our humble little unit of nerds. I could ramble on about the guy forever, and it still wouldn't do him justice. We got to work writing.
I was in paramedic school and everybody else was working, but we got this scheme where we were off for the first half of the weekend.
And we'd all be in my mom's basement.
She didn't care if we made a medium amount of noise. So we'd have like acoustic guitars or clean guitars, I think at night, and then we would just sit up writing.
Scott would come in from Columbus Thursday night.
I didn't have any friends really in Columbus outside of the crew that I worked with. I can't remember the name of the vehicle at the time, but it was like a hatchback. And I could open the back and I had my guitar back there. And I would just kind of sit and play. I would just bring it back to you guys, and you'd all tell me how awful it was, because you're like,
I told you all the time how terrible.
You're like, why you play this like sad, sappy stuff? That's when Brendan really kind of came along and taught me how to really like give some legs to some of these riffs I was writing.
I always kind of thought of the band as like a basketball team, where you have like your point guard who initiates the offense, and then you have your shooting guard that comes off of screens and pick and rolls and whatnot and fills it up, and then you got your rhythm section, which is like your front court, your center, your power forward, and kind of hold it all down, and then you got your superstar wing who's like the vocalist, and that's kind of how I always thought about it. And Scott and I were like combo guards, kind of, where we would sort of take turns initiating the offense.
We would split up and like two of us at a time would play together to see if like our parts would work. So right down to like vocals and Scott's guitar, or like Scott and Brendan's guitar, or Brendan and Yop's bass.
The writing process for that whole thing was organic. I mean, it would just be one of us coming up with a riff, and we'd jam on it for a little bit.
I was trying to like up my game to kind of match his style, and then suddenly had this sound that just was unique.
I had notebook after notebook, and I'd be sitting down with people looking for ideas to plug into melodies that I had, really trying to create good works of art.
Definitely felt like this kind of compromise rather than just two different types of paintbrushes, you know what I mean?
As a drummer, was a little tricky for me because I couldn't play necessarily, since I was, the loudest instrument in the group, and it was often 1, 2 in the morning.
Hey! Oh, you got nothing to do on February 15th? Oh, yeah! We're playing Drop the Zero! Drop the Zero! That's February 15th at the Robin Hood in Kent! Who are we playing with?
There was a lot of boozing on those Thursday nights. And then, to quote my buddy Billy, we would wake up in a pile of pizza boxes and cigarette ash, and then we would start rehearsing for the shows we had that weekend. So we would actually write all our new stuff that was going to be for Mana all night through Thursday till like 4 a.m.
And then Friday morning, so we'd actually play songs, which is where I then had to remember everything we had talked about. It was always the most fun for me because we had spent so much time the night before kind of like going over in detail, and then Friday was just kind of like throwing the paint on the canvas after we'd gotten the paint ready on Thursday.
And in the meantime, our manager Jake,
who we met from selling Mushroom Head tickets to.
Jake? Who's Jake? I don't know the guy. Never met him.
Just kidding. We love Jake.
Was coming over and like prodding us along because we were all just incompetent, drunken children.
I don't know if we conned him or if he's still conning us, but we're still friends.
Conor would call him Godzilla Jake because he was most of the time.
He was working the third shift.
He's kind of has this great kind of work ethic, and he was even coming to us after working, 12-hour shifts. He'd come just to work another shift with us.
So after a night of drinking and being hungover in the morning, he would show up with more beer because it was his weekend.
Jake started out as a fan. Then he became a friend. He's our 6th member. If our band is a ship, he's our captain. He'd tell you that's not true, but trust me, nothing could happen in this band without him giving us his time, his effort, and his direction.
Holy shit, Jake is in front of a camera.
Yeah, this ain't normal.
Oh my gosh, look how uncomfortable he is. He turned his head around. Unbelievable. Okay. How did you get to meet our band, Jake?
I met Derek first.
I was filling in for Amplexus on an acoustic show, and he came back with his Medina people and was like, yo, I think you sold tickets to me. And I was like, you're right. Did you ever look at my band? He goes,
Honestly, it's not all that good.
I'm like, oh, okay, great.
We started hanging out. Like, it was like one of those things where there was after parties and said, come on back to I think the compound was the first time I partied with you guys, and then Costly Court.
Medina, Kent Medina.
Just became friends really quick.
Jake wanted to work with us to promote a grassroots benefit concert with him he'd conceived.
I had a coworker that his daughter had cancer, and I was like, I think we could probably do a show and make some money, and donate it to Akron Children's because that's where they were going. And I remember asking Conor at Costly that, if he would be willing to do that. He's like, absolutely.
The idea was to put on a huge show with all the biggest local bands in the area. To raise awareness, people involved would grow beards for the month of November. Keep in mind, we were young and it wasn't easy back then to grow a beard. The name of the show, Novembeard for the Cure.
Friday, November 28th, the Robin Hood Bar and Grill presents the 2nd annual Novembeard for the Cure, where all proceeds go to the Akron Children's Hospital Cancer Ward, featuring Drop to Zero, Amplexus. Also, state your call.
It went off without a hitch. We raised a ton of money and realized we worked really well with Jake.
I was like, we need someone else on the outside to wrangle all these kittens. That's us, to get us in a direction we need to go. And Jake's like, I'll do it.
He became a promoter, a manager, and an outside set of eyes and ears, camera in tow, to document our journey.
So we wanted to have kind of like a sculptor. We wanted to have more to work with than we ended up with.
We worked on like 20 songs so we could get like 10 to 11 out of it, threw a bunch out.
And kind of shopped our pre-production CDs around to a couple studios.
I went to Spider Studios, I went to Lava, went into those studios by myself, and then we all went to see Cole together.
Cole Martinez, who we still work with to this day. We first heard about him because he did the Amplexus record.
Like one of my favorite albums still to this day. So well produced, just amazing musicians. Andy Mara's on drums, who was like a brother kind of growing up, just constantly pushing me to get better. And when that dropped, just hearing their songs that would come back from Cole was just like, what the fuck, dude? The guy up behind, in the driver's seat of all that was Cole Martinez. So for me, in the back of my mind was always, well, next time we have to go big, we better go with this guy or better. And it turned out there was no one better.
He was the first guy that said, like, hey, you need to like demo the new stuff that you're doing. Because if you demo the new stuff that you're doing, I can have a good idea as to whether or not it would be a good fit.
When you guys came in, you did the pre-production, gave it to me. And you guys knew what you wanted. You were super focused on where you wanted to go. You just wanted to, you were here, you wanted to be here.
I've recorded myself probably 100 times. You started with a karaoke machine when I was a kid, then moved on to like a 4-track. But I remember when we recorded with Cole and he played it back to us, I was like, this is what a recording's supposed to sound like. He just gets it. He gets the sound that you're going for, and he knows what to do to just kind of escalate it.
If I could talk about Rob Montag, the Bro Bear.
Rob's real loud.
He had so much energy all the time.
Dude, that was f***ing money, dude. That was awesome. That sounded so good. Did you hear how it went up against the guitars? It's gonna sound like heaven opened up and took a shit all over the world.
Rob and I were working on stuff, ourselves, and was stronger in the vocal section than I was, I always had ideas, but since he was a singer, it just made sense to bring him in and to help with the vocal production on that.
He hears melody really, really well. He'd been in a lot of bands for a long time. He was able to take the things that I wrote and expand on them in ways that I hadn't thought.
There was pitches that he didn't think he could go to, and he did.
The best way to get the best performance out too is just kind of put yourself in that place where you were when you wrote those lyrics and what you were feeling. And even if it's about one of your friends, when you're in there, just try to relate it to something that's either going on for you or the best way you can tap into that emotion.
He pushed me to do a whole lot of stuff that I would have never thought that I could pull off. And he was always looking for extra takes and extra melodies, which ended up servicing all of the songs really well.
That sounds awesome. That was great. I really don't want to harmony that line because what he does, it adds to the sequence of the melody. And if we harmony it, it'll keep it still kind of yeah.
With ears that could push us and with our songs in a more polished direction, we spent 3 months in Cole's Lakewood studio tracking and discovering the record we'd hoped to make.
Multiple days a week, we would be up in Lakewood, and then we just kind of whittled away at it for 6 weeks of instruments and 6 weeks of vocals.
It was kind of a process because, I think Conor was in training. I was in college at the time, and Jake was working double shifts to help fund it.
I feel like recording itself went pretty smooth, other than Cole smokes all your cigarettes.
Hey, where's Derek?
We got pushed and pushed and pushed. I think each of us thinks that we took the longest, except for Desco. He finished in one day and bragged about it.
What was the recording process like?
For Mana?
Yeah.
Oh, easy. I nailed it. One day, done. Next.
I think that's crap.
Well, you weren't there.
Tell us about some challenges recording.
No. All I remember is me screwing up a whole lot and cussing a lot. Damn it, you dick. I had to end part over again. Do it over again. The whole thing? Yeah, the same. Fuck, dick, fuck, ass. No. Fuck. And you guys getting irritated because I was taking it way too long. Bass tracking is so much fun for everyone. Conor, shut up.
Can I get a cigarette?
It was very different for me than it was for the rest of the guys because I was living in Columbus. And I'd have to drive every weekend when we were recording. Every weekend I could bank on, well, I don't get a weekend. I have to drive up to Cleveland, record for 2 days, drive back, and then work for 5 days, and then drive back, record for 2 days, and drive back and work for 5 days. But it was totally worth it in the end.
It was tedious. It was long. We were all pushed to be better than we'd ever been, to give one more take to the process. And then came mixing, the 6-month cycle of push and pull between producer and artist. Cole sent mixes, we sat on them, we sent notes. Cole sent more mixes, we sat on them, we sent more notes.
Early on, I think you really wanted to be like pushed, to the point to get like the best possible outcome. But I think in the beginning of that time, not everybody was open to it.
Yeah, I ended up learning a valuable lesson from it because we got our first mix back from Cole, and there were a whole bunch of changes that we weren't used to with Wes. And we threw a bunch of feedback back at Cole, like, "Oh, what are you doing? Why are you changing all of these parts?"
There was a few of those songs where Rob and I sat down and listened to the song. We're like, these guitar parts for this particular song need to change.
Distant city lights across the pass by make me numb. Live into them lights to turn a man into the wind. These strange city lights and cars that pass by make me numb. Live in double lives could turn a man into the rain.
And we went ahead and made the changes without telling you guys, and then presented it to you, and it didn't go over too well. I remember there was a couple instances where they're like, "What did you do to our song?"
I remember most of us were like pissed.
And he added in a couple new parts and took some other ones out.
When you spend a year and a half writing something a certain way, you become a petulant little bitch about it, and sometimes you don't like when someone else, even if they're super experienced, has a different viewpoint.
We're like, no, just sit on it for a little while and, let it stew and see how you feel. I mean, we can always go back, but you wanted us to do this.
The moral of the story of that experience was you have to give your producer some sort of creative stake, some sort of control, because you're so far buried in the forest, you're definitely not seeing the trees.
I was kind of pushing the boundaries, but not too much. And I feel like, at the end of it, it turned out great.
Everyone has the same reaction, which is, holy shit. So it's like, yeah, it's really, really good.
And I think we've kind of streamlined it down to the point where, like, now we record something and Cole sends us like a mix back. We give him a bunch of notes and then we slowly whittle ourselves back to whatever his first idea in the mix was.
Slowly, we whittled our record into a piece of art. With songs finished about love, friendship, loneliness, loss, addiction, and the fear of everything in between, we'd made our opus.
Also, Cole never has cigarettes, and if you smoke, you will also never have cigarettes around Cole. Put that in.
We named the record Mana, which is a Polynesian term for the power of elemental forces of nature embodied in a person or object. For album art, we went with a local artist working in a t-shirt shop. His name was Sean Koss.
Sean Koss was a local guy from a band called Skinny Tree, and Skinny Tree was known as the band with sick flyers because Sean made really great kind of macabre artwork.
I was always drawn to artwork. It just was something I just always was feeling the urge to do and create weird kind of artwork with like little fetuses. I was very heavily influenced by Tool and A Perfect Circle, and so I loved a lot of those kind of creepy figures.
And then just proposed the idea of, why don't you come over to a practice one night and just listen, and we'll run through everything we got, and just bring a sketch pad and maybe see what comes to mind.
Sean took notes from those meetings and created a masterful work with a different character interpretation for each song in the record. It all tied into what looked like a worn leather-bound book.
I remember the sledge head, was it Romulus, like the Spartan soldier. I remember the pain in the ass making the cover, because I was trying to get like a book that I really like. I finally found this like weathered, like leather looking one. I was like, oh, this is fucking perfect.
From the get-go, I was way past any expectation that I had.
I think my favorite part of getting an album was always checking out the art, finding if they had like hidden things. You know, I always hated CDs that didn't even bother to have the lyrics in it. Like, it ended up turning out gorgeous. You know, the art was perfect for it, the format was perfect for it. Everything about that disc I thought was really well done, well laid out.
And to this day, I still have the Sledgehead painting, which is a painting that he did on the back of a cabinet door.
Sean Koss is a very talented guy. He's another one that's just, he's kind of envious of him as far as being able to take what his hobby was and literally turn it into a living.
Sean has since gone on to much bigger and better things as an artist, and with his buddy Mikey, he started his own t-shirt shop, if that's what you'd call it. With the album done and us so proud, the only thing left to do was put it out and promote it. Spent a year or two playing every single show we could and slowly grind out attention to the art we'd made.
Coming this fall, Drop to Zero will release their long-awaited sophomore album, Mana, featuring their first single to hit the airwaves, A Capital Flu.
This namesake for discovery is just a plague. Isolation has shattered all the holes in my mind. Can a map exist? Does a path exist to show me? This is too good.
I think the whole thing with slowly breaking into what promotion really meant got us exactly where we needed to be for Mana.
In between writing, preparing for the studio, and recording in the studio, and pre-production before that, we were playing every single show that we could get our hands on.
There was plenty of shows that, you know, that I booked that I thought I knew what I was doing, but it was pretty apparent that I didn't.
Rock Bar in Cleveland, Jake's first show that he booked us, man, start from the ground level.
And I was so excited because, you know, somebody was emailing me back and giving me time slots, dates, all that stuff. So I was pretty excited that when we got to the show, you know, it was basically in front of 12 people.
He wanted to prove himself as like a manager and whatnot. And I remember us thinking, like, most of the shows we played are shitty.
Once I got in the swing of things though, like when I fully was immersed in it, I was really like taking it serious as much as I could. And then got to a point where I was really thinking that I could take you guys, you know, somewhere.
Jake booked us this show in Columbus, but there were A&R reps from the music industry that were there, and we would have a chance to play our music in front of them. So we drive down there, and you know, we're thinking it's actually going to be like a show, and it felt a lot more like we were cattle being herded.
I'll never forget that when they were sitting at the front of the of all of us giving us their speech about, you know, like, name some songs that you guys like, and people were like shouting out song names. It's like, yeah, the artist didn't write that song. That song was bought and paid for. All of the top 40 that you listen to, those are all bought and paid for songs. There's no magical kumbaya where people sit around a campfire and write music. And then I remember like a couple of us looking at each other like, well, it should be.
We came out with the album, all done, packaged up, pressed. The night before, I thought was really cool, we had a CD listening party at the same venue where we played the whole album for people. And to have our album release party pretty much sold out Robin Hood. And songs that had never been played live, people were already screaming, you know, the words back to us. Was really, really, really insane.
It was really fun. We had a lot of excitement up to that because, you know, we had spent the last, year and a half intimately writing this music, man. Like, we put a lot into writing this stuff, and we were so excited for people to hear it.
The CD release itself was actually fine. We had great bands because the scene was still pretty healthy. Some chinks in the armor ahead of time were we completely prepared to push CDs. Compact discs had been kind of the way to establish yourself in your scene, and we printed 1,000 of them.
We were still thinking that physical media was going to be a thing. We were in that weird spot where there was music online, there's physical music.
Everybody kept talking about iTunes and Spotify, like in the background. You would hear all this stuff, but we didn't really understand it. I don't think anybody did at the time, and we had no idea. MySpace was about to evaporate and become completely irrelevant, and so were CDs. So we didn't really have a plan.
Remember after the album released, it was kind of like our Thursday night writing sessions. We kind of went back under the hood, like how do we fix this vehicle to like get it to where it needs to go. So we had a lot of ideas for branding.
So I had a few buddies that were in some local MMA faction, and I had an opportunity to film those events, and I thought it was a great opportunity to get the band's music heard and in front of a different audience.
Our music was used as the music that played when fighters would like come out, and then we even played a show.
Well, we were kind of like wallpaper rather than playing a show.
People are about to be hating on us. Conor, would you like to introduce us? Get off the fucking stage.
Hello? We're dropped to zero. You know, when you're used to interacting with your audience, like we didn't really have an audience. The audience was there for the cage, and we were just kind of like that high school prom band. You know, everyone's there to dance, but not necessarily to you.
We got pretty burnt out playing every single show that we could possibly play, and somewhere along the line, Jake found a company that was supposed to get our music into movies and commercials.
And I thought it was just a, an hands-off kind of way to get, again, the music out there. And it just ended up being just another scam.
The music industry is rife with people willing to steal money and time and effort from artistic young people that try hard and are really enthusiastic about their art.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see.
Holiday Hootenanny was something that some of us pushed really hard for, and it's funny in hindsight after digging into marketing. When you make music and you put out music, like one of the first main rules is you never do shit in December. And we made a huge mistake and tried to promote this huge ass show at the Robin Hood, and we shit the bed with it.
And then I remember driving back home from Baltimore, New Year's Day, 2010, with the worst gin hangover in the world on a blizzardy I-76. And I get a call from Conor saying that he's done with the band. Once I got back and got in the right state of mind, it was really hard to hear that. The fact that we just put out this monster album, and then to lose, first of all, one of our members, which we'd already been through a lot, and then let alone like the voice of the album was just crushing.
We're all just exhausted, and I think the feeling that you get when you're in a basement with your friends making something out of thin air was gone. It was gone.
I take a lot of, like, in hindsight, blame for that.
And on a whim, I quit. And a big part of me says you should have hunkered down and just done the, hey, let's play 100 shows to promote this thing and build it 3 fans at a time.
When we came out that album, like, I just thought it was going to be so good that people were going to buy it. Hindsight, we should have gave that album away. Like, every show, we should have just been slinging them discs.
There was more to being in a band than just playing shows. It is a business, and that makes it really hard when your business doesn't pay very well. So when we were in the thick of it, it felt more like Drop to Zero was our career, and we all just had side jobs. But at some point, that really kind of caught up to a lot of us, and career and family become more and more important, and it's really hard to put, the amount of hours that we were putting into the band continuously like that.
What derailed Drop to Zero?
Hi. Hi.
It was me. It was me.
To be honest, I think at that end of the year, like right after we came out with that album, you were solidifying everything with Allison. I was getting it, I asked Amber to marry me.
Trying to start a family, getting married, buying a house.
We touched so many people. If you think about it through the years, people wouldn't have met. Whole families are together now because of things that we did.
Within a few months, I was emailing people like, hey, we should get back to this. But by that point, you know, Derek is going to become a chef and he's leaving the state. Brendan is going into the military and he's leaving everywhere for the next several years, and it just didn't work out.
That all being said, it did lead to us being where we are individually now. You know, I run my own culinary company. I think I'm a pretty good cook, but I still listen to that album at least once a month. And through my journeys from Ohio to Pittsburgh to West Virginia to New York to Texas, like, I show it to every single person I can. And
I really cherished our time writing together, the whole group. I'm very proud of the music we made and how we made it, and I feel like that's how music should be made. You know, it's out there. Go download it, go listen, whatever.
Life goes on. Careers, families, individual interests. In 2015, Desco suggested we do a one-off show, so we did. We did it again in 2017. And you know what? We found magic in a rehearsal space. Not to attract a crowd, but to enjoy the journey itself.
We stumbled down this boulevard, our tongues embracing this drunken potential. The fight, the fear, the wax away that pulls the air, but gasoline to our heads. This could be what's true.
oh, I think because we just miss each other, and it's fun to play music with people we love to play music with and just consider family.
Music is kumbaya. It really is just these magical notes that we organize together, and it really brings out emotion and it's something emotive from inside. And
making music together is easier, it's better, and we really have priorities straight, that we're doing it for the right reasons and we're not just chasing something.
It's more quality over quantity. So, you know, maybe we get together and write a track here and there and put something out rather than, you know, spend 80 hours in a basement trying to put out a full album. You know, maybe we give you an EP.
Well, it means I have to relearn guitar parts, which is always fun. Strangely, it was kind of like riding a bike though. We didn't sound that terrible when we plugged in, even though it had been several years.
And it's one thing for us to get a beer and hang out, but when all of us get a beer and we hang out, it inevitably turns into, hey, you want to jam? Hey, do you want to play music? Hey, you want to do the thing that we do? We can communicate in a language that nobody else can communicate, just to each other. And when we have our guitars that work together with our rhythm section and me singing over it, having a direction put forward by Jake and having our recorded shit mixed by Cole, that's where we hit.
You know, I'm just really thankful that, you know, the friendships we all developed, and I just still get really excited when the guys call me and want to do something creative and they trust me to work on the projects with them. It's always been fun just hanging out with the guys and being able to create things.
And also, it's worth noting that as we've gotten older, we came up with a lot of friends around us that are either not here anymore or they lost their privileges for a lot of different reasons when it comes to getting together with their friends. What we have is very rare. It's rare that guys our age are all still getting along. It's rare that guys our age are all still willing to act like fools together. And it's a privilege because time isn't promised to anyone. So we're very, very cognizant that we don't want to take that for granted.
So to have an opportunity to get back together with Conor and Brendan and Scott and Yop and Jake is always yes, please.
We're friends. We're brothers. We're bandmates. And we're still making music.
How's my tits?
All right, quiet on the set. I'm saying very important things.
You know, 1 in a million children every year are born with a penis too large to walk. It's really sad. And it's one of those 1 in a million. I'm here to talk about it.
Oh, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it's making its way.
Oh, just fair warning, I am going to awkwardly run out of words to say. Okay, that's that's going to happen. Yeah. Like, what do you think about this? Yep.
And I had another point. I forgot what it was. This is what happens when you get old. You forget things.
Do you really have a 13-inch penis? God. Grab a beer while you're there. What was it like to be on RedTube?
You know, I'd always had my sights set on Pornhub, but I didn't want to get too big for my britches. I mean,
Wouldn't you want to be bigger than your britches to be more stand out?
Are my children still down here?
oh crap!
Oh, hey family.
Oh, hi family. Cut. I was a dad. Yop was a dad. Scott was practicing to be a dad and getting married, and Brendan was in the military. So like, time wasn't working out. Yeah. Good for Scott, huh?
And I remember when we got into the studio with Cole, I was just starting to date Amber. I was like, I don't know if me and you are gonna work out because I'm gonna be.
He's like, we're gonna be moving to LA and this can't get serious. And I was like, aw, that's cute. Going places. Yeah.
Yop and I always have these legendary arguments, and he's usually right. This is how it goes. I'll never forget the Mana fight where we were in the studio, and he's like, you should put that part over here instead. I literally think I said that would sound like ballsack ass. I think that's what I said. And then he did it, and my mind was blown. I was like, that's awesome.
Can you, while you're over there?
Beer?
Yes, please.
Can you like reach to the thing?
Just grab one. Thank you so much. Cold and in a can.
All right, now.
We didn't actually drink during the recording of Mana. Except for the one day that Desco and I made We Awesome.
Name C Weezy, make it scream. Pimp hands, strong fingers covered in rings. Roll around town in my pimped out Buick. This hot shit and I drive right through 'em. Dress real fly, cause it ain't no thing. Choke you out with gold plated bling. Got 36 chillin' on speed dial. It's an ass Rolodex and your girl's on file. We awesome! And just be begging us to wax that ass. We awesome! And the homies say what up as we rollin' past. And me and my crew, we don't fuck around. We get paid for that ass slinging by the pound. And me and my crew, we don't fuck around. We get paid for that ass slinging by the pound. Turn that up like the heat in a sauna, cause you're gonna need cleanse when my rhymes get on you. And I be killing this right here, cause my flow stick with you like herpes in your ear. And Jack LaLanne ain't got on this, cause I'll juice your ass with my vitamin. And to all you who be acting like haters, Double D work your like a cheese grater.
Yeah, making gold records. 09, 2009.
Are we done?
Well done, sir.
All right.
Well done.
Good job, everybody. Isla, great interview. Oh, terrible high five. There we go.
Hey, Chief.
Yeah.
You want to be in this documentary?
No.